Hello and welcome to episode 1097 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Tuesday, September 13th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, good afternoon, sir. Morning still for you, but afternoon for here.
Still morning here.
It's 1098. My bad. I didn't see y'all had a Sunday up. I'm behind on my apps, my pods by a lot right now. So sorry. 1098. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jason and I had a good episode on Sunday. Talked about the rule changes and
excellent. I'm definitely checking that out. Then.
So I had also a good conversation last night. Nick Pollock just surprised us as a surprise special guest halfway through our FWFB episode last night. We talked a little bit more about the changes. Him and I are in a little bit of a disagreement about how much this may affect pitchers. He doesn't think the shift is going to affect pitchers quite as much, or at least have the fantasy impact that I think it will.
I think it'll impact hitters more. What did you think about the pitch clock?
I definitely think it's going to have an impact. But I think that this is going to push pitchers into going for strikeouts more. He doesn't think that that's necessarily the case. I worry about guys. I worry about guys, being thrown off, and you guys who already have bad walk rates having worse walk rates.
I can see that. I can tell you this on the strikeout thing. With the pitch clock in concert, they're not going to be able to get as many strikeouts. Like, one of the key tricks for why strikeouts are up so much is pitchers taking more and more time in between pitches. Because think of it like a video game. When you stand idle, you gain energy. Like, that's how it is in real life too. So the more time in between pitches, more velo, more command. With the pitch clock, it'll counterbalance some of that. So you might be right that they might go for them more, but they might not be as capable of getting them with the clock.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. That makes a lot of sense. You also got to wonder how many guys are going to be able to go as deep in the game without the rest in between pitches. So,
and they already don't go that far. So that could be. It really is interesting because these moves could create some, and individual cases will be on each side, right? Mm-hmm. Some guys will probably figure out, hey, I still want to go 6-7 innings pretty regularly. I'm going to have to change some things and downshift more for the lesser hitters, upshift for the real tough guys, which is the way it was back in the day. And I'm not saying back in the day it was better. Back in the day, you knew you had to go like 8 at a minimum, or else you're like laughed out of the clubhouse. Like, you only went 6 today. Wow, you're the biggest loser ever.
They could also get away with throwing like 68 miles an hour. Like,
exactly. Like, the stuff wasn't there, so you could downshift to your 82 mile an hour fastball and get this no hit shortstop out, and then dial back up for the leadoff hitter. Things like that. So it was different. If players were trained that they had to go distance and not just all out, I think we'd see plenty of guys going 8-9 innings, but the teams don't care about that because the three times through penalties, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we could see some interesting mix here with these rule changes. I can't wait to hear what you and Justin say, or you and Jason. You know what the Nick Pollock thing reminds me of? You ever hear stories of like local area concert spot or comedy spot where somebody big comes that, oh my God, freaking Bill Burr came up on stage unannounced, did 20 live, dude, because his homie was the headliner here, this mid-tier guy, stuff like that. Or so-and-so brought huge artist on stage at the concert. That's what it's like when you say Nick Pollock came on, because like you're watching the show, Friends with Friends, and enjoying that. And you're like, oh shit, Nick Pollock for an hour, you said too. That's amazing.
Oh yeah. Like we were probably like a good 40 minutes in or something like that when Nick popped up into the chat, and I just sent him the link, and then he stayed on for like an hour.
We ended up.
So if you like long episodes, it's a 2 hour and 20 minute marathon episode with me and Dave, and then Nick joining us for about an hour in the middle of it.
Well, we'll cut some of the time here so that they can enjoy both. We're going to talk some second half standout pitchers, and a lot of it, I'm curious where you are for next year, because every one of these guys is rostered right now. If they're available for some reason as like streamers, go get them. So I'm not really worried about what they're going to do the rest of the year. We're using these guys. Some shallower leagues, you might find a Justin Steele or an Austin Voth on the wire, but for the most part, these guys have been good. And I'm really curious what you think about them next year. And we're going to run the gamut from guys like Steele and Voth all the way up to our number one guy here, Spencer Strider. No questions about how great he is. No questions about the fact that he's going to be a premier pickup in drafts next year. I'm thinking very high. I'm thinking like third, fourth round with Strider. Curious your rundown on his season. Remember, he came in from the bullpen this year, and he had a little false start at the beginning there. So there's going to be a lot of stories of I picked him up, and then he went back to the bullpen, so I cut him. And then, Tommy 2 Cents down the road picked him up, and he won our league. What do you think of Strider, and how willing will you be to invest in him next year on the hype, which will be substantial? I think he'll go second round in some leagues, but then live in the third, fourth ADP style. Spencer Strider, what do you think?
I mean, there's not much you can say to detract from what he's done. He's
Make stuff up.
Yeah, no, he's been phenomenal. Like, you compare him to league average, what the league averages in terms of contact rates, and he's blowing out all the way. Like, the strikeouts are amazing. He pitches in a really, really great team, on a really, really great team. Like, they're
good, by the way. Can we just give the Braves I know they're the reigning champs, so it's not like there's some upstart, but they're so unbelievably good.
Yeah, in 125 innings this year, he's given up 6 home runs. Like, it's I mean, how can you criticize him? I think the only issue is, like, what do we expect him to do in terms of innings next year?
That's the only thing you could really come up with.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I'm going to let it dissuade me to. Like, I'm really not. The talent's there. He also 6-footer from the right side. There's some historical bias against that player type holding up to the rigors of 30-plus starts, and he will be jumping up next year to that. But as far as, like, me avoiding Spencer Strider because he might get hurt because he's a little bit more slight of frame, I don't care to overly factor that. That is a risk.
Yeah, and that's a concern for, like, long term. If you're playing in a dynasty or keeper league, maybe try to sell high on him. Not necessarily right now, but, like, as draft season's going, because he's going to be one of the most talked about pitchers coming into draft season. Because they're gonna be people that go, well, he's worth a second round pick, and then there are going to be people in the industry that go regression. So he's going to be on everybody's mouth come draft season, one way or another, right? And so that will drive up his price in the dynasty league. So, like, maybe in a dynasty league, if you're not competing, I'm always looking at, if I'm not competing, I'm always looking to sell starting pitching because they can break down so quickly. But in a redraft league, I don't know that I'll be able to be willing to pay the price on him, but there's no reason not to if you're just looking at the straight skills.
Do you agree with the general idea that I have where some second round peak?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then a lot of third, fourth ADP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Spencer Strider. It'll depend on how my rankings break down, whether or not I'm going to pay that price, but he's going to be up there very high. He's a top 10 starter.
He will be this year's Freddie Peralta from a draft stock standpoint.
Yes. I think that checks out. And, also slight of frame, maybe some of the same sort of, but Spencer Strider took big steps in his command this year that we have never really seen from Peralta necessarily. Yeah, I don't believe. Absolutely. I'd actually like to see, I didn't talk to Eno with this, on the Command Plus, because is it anecdotal that I'm noticing, or does the Command Plus stuff back it up with Spencer Strider? Because I feel like he's improved as the season's gone on. He's at 3.0 walks for the season. It was definitely higher for quite a while there, and 3 is still, it's right there on the edge, but you can live with that when you strike out that many guys. 8% walk rate, which is also league average with Spencer Strider. So you're looking for the Command Plus?
Yeah, I don't think I have it.
No problem. We can get it from and see what's going on there with Spencer Strider. I mentioned Justin Steele. He is on the IL, so maybe he fell onto some waiver wires if people had IL spots that just got clogged up. We don't know exactly when he's going to come back this year, so I do understand cutting him. It's not on a talent thing. It's on I need guys who can play type of situation. But Justin Steele has been unquestionably strong this year. And he also is somebody who I think we're going to hear stories of. I had him early, I was in, and then this blow up took me off of him, or this inconsistency took me off of him, or when I started him at Pittsburgh and he got rocked for 5 in 5 2/3, I rage cut him or something like that. Because he was a little wobbly at the early part of the year. In fact, through May, Justin Steele had a 5.40 ERA, but he had a 3.20 FIP at the time. The skills were there. And over the last 14 starts, Justin Steele now has a 2.05 ERA with a 3.22 FIP. So he's been the same guy, but the luck went to the other side of the ledger. 80 strikeouts, not walks, 80 strikeouts in 79 innings there in those last 14 with 27 walks. The season numbers, 25% K, 10% walks. So still a little high on the walks, but Justin Steele's been a nice little breakout. How are you looking at Justin Steele for next year? He'll be 28 years old. Excuse me. It'll be his age 27 season next year. He just turned 27.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that we talked about last night in reference to the shift stuff is you have to wonder these guys with kind of big ground ball rates and bad whips to begin with, like how much they're going to be hurt by not having the shift. And there's going to be a lot of people who are smarter than me and can automate things a lot faster than me that are going to be able to kind of quantify how much these guys are going to be hurt. But Steele's got a 52% ground ball rate, above the league average zone contact rate. I like the fact that there are strikeouts. We're not talking about a guy who's like, striking people out at like a, 20% K rate or anything. He was closer to 24 or 25% this year. So that's good. That's what I want to see. It's not going to be a good team in Chicago.
You think it'll be better though? Like you think because they didn't do a total rebuild. So I wonder.
It depends on what they do in the offseason. Like
that's true. But could they take in my mind, I feel like they could take a quicker step next year with a couple key moves.
I mean, they've got money, right? Like the only like
of course they lie and pretend they don't.
Yeah.
But.
So I mean, it really depends on does the organization think that this is like a time for them to make a move? It's a division. The Cardinals are good, but the Brewers, the Brewers are always kind of just hanging around.
I mean, they got a lot of talent. I think they underperformed their talent.
Cincinnati's got some sneaky good talent.
They step forward in that division next year.
Yeah.
They have a great system now. We're seeing a few pieces emerge that aren't even part of those big prospects. The Noelve, the Ellie De La Cruz, the what's the other guy? The other middle infielder. They have Matt McClain. Or no. Edwin. What's the other one they got from Seattle? Edwin Aquino, is it? Edwin something. Edwin Arroyo.
I can't remember.
Prospect folks are screaming right now, like, hey, you stupid geek, you don't know anybody. Edwin Arroyo, who knows what names I said? I was close-ish, not really. But yeah, Edwin Arroyo, he's way far away. But they haven't even broke into those yet. But I'm talking about guys like, I see a Spencer Steer who's been putting up some interesting plate appearances. And these guys aren't even prospects, TJ Friedel and Jake Fraley, but they're both age 28 next year. They could be a nice two pieces in their outfield. I agree with you on Cincy. But Chicago could be better too. And that could certainly help a Justin Steele and a Keegan Thompson. But you're not quite diving in, I feel like, on the Steele. Because I don't think he's going to be expensive. But
I think he's going to be fair priced, actually. So, I don't think there's a problem with taking him where he's likely going to be going. I don't think he's necessarily even going to be like a top 150 pick next year. So
I agree.
I think, especially in your 10 and 12 team leagues, like that is such a low price to pay that I don't think that you have to worry about it. Like, I think if you're playing in deeper formats, you're playing 15 team leagues, I think you probably end up having to be your number 4 starter. And I don't know that I feel super comfortable with that. So I think a shallower format where he's going to one of the last pitchers you put on your roster, I think that's pretty decent upside, right? We did see some gains from him this year. I do like the fact that he gets strikeouts. It's just the amount of contact he gives up. I do worry. And this is the hard part with like all the new rules is we have no idea how they're going to play out. And I said this in 2021 after the 2020 season when you had a lot of people who were like, well, this is how you got to value 2020 for 2021. This is how you got to play 2021 now that we just had 2020. And I'm going to say the same thing that I said then now, which is anybody who tells you this is the way we have to do it is lying to you.
But they don't know. Yeah, like you can't be that definitive on it. Like you just should not be that definitive on it because
there's no historical context for this. Like so,
exactly,
we have no idea what's going to happen. We can make educated guesses.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we spend the whole offseason doing is trying to prepare the best way we can. But I agree with you. The definitives of like this is the one way to. And I get clickbait headlines and stuff, but like don't get fooled by this is the smoking gun to fix to be good next year or whatever.
So, I mean, but he's like one of the things I'm probably going to devalue, are guys who don't get, really gaudy strikeout rates. You know, as Nick calls them, the Tobies, right, of the world.
Yep.
They're going to be devalued a fair amount. High ground ball guys, right? High ground ball guys that would have benefited from the shift.
Wouldn't you have to investigate to see how much they're helped by it, though? Because couldn't ground ball guys be hurt just as much by it? By
Potentially.
the shift?
It's just so hard to know. Like it
is. And I think it will be a case by case, because I feel like, you know, looking at the league, for me, the shift has impacted individual hitters more than it's done anything for the league, right? Like it has had a residual effect on things in that lefties, they're not trying to get base hits anymore. They got to hit over the shift. So that's a factor that you won't necessarily see in BABIP that is happening, right? Like, so the BABIP won't necessarily change substantially at the major league level because of that, but just watch a left-hander go against the shift and you'll see that they're trying to hit over it. Now, if you look in the last 20 years, BABIP is actually up a point. It was 289 in 2002 and it's 290 this year. It's really, I mean, it's ranged as high as 297. And by the way, it was 297 the year before that in 2000 as well. Or 2000, 296, 2001, 292, 2002, 290, 289. The last 3 years, it's been 290 on the button. I don't know. Like 299 was the high in 2007 and 289 was the low in 2002. That's such a small shift. Like if it bounces back up to the 290, 299, do we think the shift, there was plenty of shifts in 2007. So I don't know if the shift will make a tangible difference. I'm rambling. I'm sorry, but I don't think the shift is going to make a tangible difference. I think it'll be individual cases. So I wouldn't devalue player classes. I would do the legwork to really dive in to see the individual players that I might, you know, say you have a 50% ground ball rate, but it's center and oppo ground balls. A lot of, a lot of not pulled ground balls, even though that's not generally, a lot of ground balls are pulled, you roll over it. But I do wonder. And like you said, smarter people will do the work for us that can math it up there and really see. But I'm going to be doing my own individual research on different players to do my own research on these players here before I decide if I'm going to get a Carlos Rodon vaccination or not. But, you know, I honestly just picked somebody at the top of the list here that I was looking at. So I don't know. Steele's interesting, but I want to move on to the next guy because listen.
I will say, just like quick, one of the cool things we do have over at Fangraphs is on their spray chart, you can take out different batted ball events, right?
Yes.
So he's got the majority of his batted ball.
Steele. This is Justin Steele you're back on.
Yeah. Right? His majority of his batted ball events are straight up. They're to, third base, shortstop. Like, so he may not be affected quite as much. So that's a pretty
that's an interesting little tidbit there. Yeah. So he might be able to succeed with it. And this is something that we can't know unless like Eno's talking to him or any other reporter that gets info. Some guys hate the shift and it bothers them just inherently. And like, so they're not their best just because, and they know that they got to get over it.
Nick mentioned that last night.
But yeah, there's gonna be some guys who are just at more ease and they're just going to have a comfort rise in performance. And we don't know those. So we'll find out. We should start going around. Do you hate the shift? Do you hate the shift to every pitcher? I don't know if Drew Rasmussen hates it, but he doesn't hate succeeding. He's been amazing. 50 innings in the second half with a 1.62 ERA and a 0.88 WHIP. For the season, he's at 257, 104, 23% K rate, 6% walk. Hey, seems like Phil Dussault knew something when he said his chart had him at the 20th starter or top 20 starter or something. And I remember balking at that. I was like, wait a minute, what? The guy doesn't throw innings. My question with him has always been the volume, though. I've always been like, can you love a guy and put him as a top 20 type starter if he only goes 5 innings every time? Well,
don't tell me who I can love.
Exactly. That's true. I won't. But he's been pushing it up a bit. He's only gone less than 5 twice in the second half. He's got 6s in his last. He's gone over 5 in each of his last 5 outings and 6 of 7. So he's pushed the volume a bit more with Rasmussen while having this amazing performance. Of course, it's the efficiency that is allowing him to get deeper. The pitch counts haven't really changed. So let's spin it forward. Coming off this brilliant second half and overall brilliant season, a huge cosign from somebody like Phil Dussault, who said his system had him as a top 20 or 25. Pardon them, I don't want to misquote, but it was a very high ranking. Mm-hmm. Where do you think Rasmussen is going to go, and will you be willing to pay it? Because I think it's going to be a high price.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a high price too. Question is how high, man? Because like he's still a guy who doesn't go super deep into games, but he has been going 6, which is a great sign, and he's been super efficient. I mean, the last time he had a multi-walk game was the beginning of August.
That's huge because that saves him, like you're saying. Like that allows him to go deeper into those games for Rasmussen instead of getting pulled. But he is still getting the same pitches. Like he's still not over 100 at all. And so I just wonder what do we do with that? Like, are they going to expand him further next year? Or
I would think this is more of a matter right now that they're, especially with the injury to McClanahan, and like they're trying to limit his innings so he's available during the postseason.
Definitely.
So I think you would think that the reins will be taken off a little bit. It's still Tampa Bay. So like they're still going to like limit guys, especially the third time through the order and stuff. So, but like, why can't he have, like, I don't want to say he'll be SP2 necessarily next year, but like top of the SP3s.
So let me give you.
You may get drafted in the SP2 area, though.
Let me give you some of the short sample standouts last year that are in a Drew Rasmussen type of level here. Now, some of these guys had different cases where you're like, we think we're going to build the innings up. But Carlos Rodon had 133 innings last year. Mm-hmm. Trevor Rogers, $133, and he was excellent. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Another standout would be the aforementioned Shane McClanahan. He had 123 innings, and we saw where he went with the projection that we thought he would build innings. Now, I think we all see Rasmussen as more of a workhorse type than, McClanahan is more of a workhorse type than Rasmussen. But we thought McClanahan could add 30, upwards of 50 innings and go up to 175, 180. He's at 147 because injuries hit again. Where does Rasmussen go from here with innings counts? Like I said, we don't know. Rodon, by the way, added 30 innings. He's at 163 right now, and he's going to add more, so he'll be up at like 180. So these other guys that were standouts, Trevor Rogers obviously busted, so he didn't end up really getting a chance to push the innings. I think he would have been able to if he was good. Ohtani's his own separate case, but he had 130 innings last year. So we saw some standouts that had short samples, and they went pretty high. Do you think he goes more in those guys type of range, or can he get to like an 8th, 9th round type of range for Rasmussen?
Oh, I think he's definitely gonna be above 8th, 9th round. Okay. I mean, it's not a perfect comp because Rogers had a little bit better strikeout numbers, but I think Rasmussen's already put together the longer track record as compared to Rogers' track record last year. But Rogers was going like the 4th through 6th rounds. Yes. And I'm thinking 5th, 6th round probably sounds about right.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. Yeah, he was a 5th rounder by ADP and was going in that 60 to 89 range was Rogers' range last year. Mm-hmm. Trevor Rogers, and McClanahan was right by him at 92, 74 to 119, a bit of a thicker range there. I don't think we get too much past that. Okay, here's another one. This is a different case because of who he is, but Kershaw was also a short sample god, and nobody was projecting him to add much, right? He did 121 innings last year, 3.55 ERA. Nobody was saying, oh, well, he's going to go 180. If you were, you're insane. So Rasmussen, if you don't believe he's going to go much higher, do you draft him in a Kershaw type range, which last year was pick 114 as the 47th pitcher off the board? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think he should be above the 47th pitcher. I think he should be.
So that's going to be 5th, 6th round.
Yeah. In a 15 team, yeah.
In a 15 team.
I think you just want to be smart about how you construct that rotation, right? If you're going to draft a guy like Rasmussen, you need to draft a horse at the top that's going to get the innings because there's a legitimate chance that 160 is the cap. right?
Yeah, they might just not be interested in really pushing
Mhm.
Rasmussen beyond that, because you look at another example of a guy like Jeffrey Springs, who came into the rotation this year, and they like took the reins off, and he's not that far behind Rasmussen's innings already, 123 to 110. Like Springs is right there, and they said no innings limits for him and all that. Now he's 3 years older, different cases. I'm just saying they pushed him a bit. And I feel you. Team construction is going to be a big part. I wouldn't necessarily want to pick up this guy with Rasmussen. That's George Kirby in Seattle. 112 innings so far of excellent work. 298, 114 with a 25% K, 3% walk rate. I think he does project to eventually be somebody of a workhorse who can consistently get that 175 plus range. I don't know if it'll be next year. I guess everything kind of depends on where they're at in the playoffs and how far they have to push him this year. But what do you think of George Kirby's excellent season and how that's going to play out next year for Kirby?
Oh man, you're a big video game guy.
I am.
What does Kirby do in the video games?
He's pretty mean. You're talking about like he doesn't have overwhelming stuff.
No,
Like,
he eats.
Oh, the
He eats
actual
what
Kirby.
he
I
does.
thought you meant Kirby's character in MLB The Show. You meant Kirby the
yeah.
tough guy. Yes. Kirby eats. That's a great reference. I'm sorry I screwed it up, but that was a great reference.
Yeah. I probably should have been a little bit more.
I'm thinking like, how have I done with him in Out of the Park Baseball and MLB The Show? I'm like, he's okay, but he doesn't have a dominant pitch. Anyway, continue. He does eat. Do you think Kirby becomes an innings eater as early as next year? He'll be 25, by the way. He didn't come up at 22. He's a college guy.
I think he's.
So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he immediately jumps to innings eater next year.
I think he does. I mean, he's a guy that he's got 3 legit and really kind of a 4th legit pitch. Really good command. Does a really good job about getting out of innings quickly because he doesn't put men on base for free. Doesn't give up the home runs. Pitches in a good ballpark. A really good division to pitch in because you've got 2 kind of bottom feeder teams or 3 kind of bottom feeder teams in that division. Like everything is lining up for Kirby to be a top 30 pitcher next year. I think the big question is like, how deep do they let him go? I don't think they need to put the reins on him in the way they might need to on a 22-year-old with 120 innings, right? I think he'll be a guy by the end. He's going to have probably 130, probably 130, 25 innings maybe or something like that.
Well, you also have to consider
plus playoffs.
26 in the minors. So he's at 138 right now, plus the rest of the season, plus playoffs. So, and if you do the 1.5 factor on the playoff innings, because that's kind of the stress that it puts on your arm, he might already be at like 175 next year in terms of total volume, ready to be a 200 guy next year if his body holds up for George Kirby.
I think Kirby is a top 30 pitcher.
I like the boldness. And like I said, I was originally saying maybe don't pair him with Rasmussen. But as we're going through this, I'm like, yeah, he can get the innings next year. And maybe you do pair him with Rasmussen to cover some of those innings because I really do like him. And I do think his floor for George Kirby is pretty high. Let's go to one of those teams that you think is going to be a bottom feeder again next year. And I don't blame you, but I desperately hope for God's sakes that they're not stupid Angels. 14-game losing streak. But it's hard not to think that they're going to still have struggles next year. But they, Ohtani, Sandoval, Detmers. What about this guy? José Suarez. Is he ready to be a real part of their rotation? Unexpected breakout here. 24-year-old lefty, 86 innings, 3.77 ERA, 126 whip for José Suarez, sorry there. And in the second half, he's been even better and really taken advantage of his schedule. Is José Suarez somebody that is something? Do you believe in this, or is this a second half flourish that people are going to overdraft because he helped them down the stretch?
Oh, can it be both? I mean, you look at the schedule that he's faced, and it's pretty light. Like it's pretty light. It's in the second half at Kansas City, home versus Oakland, away versus Oakland.
He somehow faced Detroit like 9 times, didn't he?
No, he only faced Detroit once, but he forgot to face Oakland twice. Like, it's been the lightest of schedules, and I don't know that he is like good, overpowering stuff necessarily. I think in a different schedule he would not be on this list. That being said, there have been some improvements to the game. And I want to give him credit. The slider has been crucial to his success. I I'll be interested to see where it goes because I don't feel like he should get overdrafted. Like I don't feel like he's going to be in the SP. Like I don't think he's going to be drafted as a top 40 or maybe even top 50 starting pitcher. I think the fact the Angels are so bad, they're in a 6-man rotation. They're a West Coast team, limits his visibility to a lot of people. I don't think he's going to be one of these guys that pushes up huge. So he could end up actually being of value because he'll probably be on a lot of people's fades list in the same way that like Cal Quantrill was really ignored by lots of people and ended up being a really, really good value this year. So like I don't want to say like, oh well, no way am I going back to the well. Like thanks for the good work, José Suarez. At the same time, like I don't think this is a step into another level. Like I don't think he's like I do think he's pretty much guaranteed a rotation spot.
You'd think, right? Because this is an impressive performance. And by the way, I finally got Suarez's second half, 176, 090 ERA whip, by the way.
Yeah, it's super impressive second half. They're in a 6-man rotation. And what else do they have? Like,
yeah, exactly. Unless they buy something.
They've got Ohtani, but they still have
Ohtani, Sandoval, Detmers. That's their 3.
Yeah.
So that's 3 locked.
They still got
so there's
3
2
more.
spots open. Or 3 more if they want to keep the 6.
They're going to keep 6 with Ohtani.
You think so?
Sure.
I think they should change that. Let him pitch every 5th.
They should.
They probably will. You're right.
Yeah.
So they got 3 more spots. Suarez definitely copping one of those. That's a good call. He's been amazing. I think if you're a Suarez believer, fret not. You're not going to overpay.
Yeah,
he's going to be really cheap in my opinion, to the point where if you really do believe in him, he can be your sleeper. No one's moving José Suarez through the roof in any tangible way. He might end up going where Quantrill went last year, which was pick 300.
Yeah.
And even if it's 50 picks higher than that, okay, your sleeper at 250 is fine. So José Suarez can be a sleeper.
You know where I want José Suarez is in draft champions. Like I want a lot of early José Suarez shares in draft champions because he's going to be one of those guys that people just kind of forget about in drafts. And he won't win you your league or anything like that, but he's going to provide some pretty useful innings with the Angels in that rotation. So like in those really deep leagues where you get to this point in the season and you're like, oh my God, what I would give for a healthy arm that even comes close to a strikeout an inning.
I don't even want to see a red suitcase to save my life. If I had red luggage, I'm throwing it out by the season's end.
I'm in a DC where I'm trying to stay in the race. And right now I have to start Andrew Chafin and Matthew Boyd because I only have 10 pitchers that are healthy
alive
out of the 22 or 23 I drafted.
That's a pain in the butt.
And so José Suarez in draft champions kind of leagues, draft and hold leagues I think is the money pick, but I also think he's going to be viable in just about every other format.
I'm with that. José Suarez, interesting. 24 years old this year, 25-year-old lefty next year. Could be somebody who, and if there is another level, by the way, then watch out. So I love him as just a floor guy.
Do you think there is another level? I
don't know yet. I understand that, and you're looking at the profile. I'm not, so I would want to investigate before I go any further on that, but probably not. He throws medium, 93 from the left side is fine. He's got 3 pitches, but it's 2 breakers. So, I think he's playing some of his best ball right now, José Suarez. I'm going to use that 403 Sierra as a guide. I'm planning for an upper 3s, low 4s ERA, which has value in draft champions and 15 teamers. The nature of our deeper leagues that you and I play is going to make us José Suarez believers, where some folks in 12s and 10s, they don't need to be. He can be a streamer for them, and that's all they have to worry about.
Yeah, I think José Suarez in 10s, I don't know that he's even draftable, honestly.
No, I think he's an in-season streamer that you decide. And then if he is good, you get to keep him. But for the most part, you don't have to draft Suarez in the 10.
In 12s, I think he's kind of borderline.
Team streamer.
In 15s, I think just the stability. Because I think he is going to have a chance to stay in the rotation all year. I think that gives him value. But there's just, like I said, I don't think there's another level here. It's a 12% swing strike rate. I don't think all of a sudden, he added this slider this year that's been really, really pivotal to his success. So maybe he adds a different pitch, like, or maybe like in something, all of a sudden you go, oh, and he's had a huge velo boost before, so maybe he gets another velo boost, and you're like, now
he has a real changeup, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't. It's just bad, but he does have a real changeup. So if he improves that, maybe. But I didn't mean to steamroll you there, but I said he only had slider, curve as his secondaries. No, he's got a 4-pitch mix: fastball, slider, curve, change, and change is actually the most used secondary. I think he needs to be a bit better. It was great last year. It's a minus 0.3 pitch value this year, so not as good for Suarez. So yeah, deep leagues, I think it could definitely be somebody that overperforms or just is what he is, kind of status quo.
The change is actually the strikeout pitch. The change.
Oh, that's where he's getting his case. Okay.
41 of his strikeouts have come on.
I'm surprised that has such a bad pitch value. You know what? Shouldn't always just overjudge on pitch value. Pitch values tell you what's going on, but they're not predictive. So let me back up on that. I don't want to say, because it was his best pitch last year, and it is a pitch that he needs. And I wasn't sure if he had like abandoned it this year because it wasn't going well. No, he's still throwing it. He loves it. If that slider goes with it, there could be something nice there. 12% swing strike rate, though, should generate about a 25% K rate. He's at 23. So that's where Suarez is. I like him. What about this next guy who is having a big breakout is another one where I think he could really jump up? And that's Brady Singer. Big time prospect, number 18 pick overall, top 100 type guy. Showed some flashes last year, started to kind of get the ball rolling. This year, next level. Second half for Singer, 63 innings of a 2.29 ERA, 103 whip. 25% K rate, 5% walk rate. I really love that. 50% ground balls. Is this the awakening for Singer? Is he a true breakout to believe in and somebody you'll draft next year?
Absolutely. And the problem is everybody's going to be on it. Like, it's like there is no hiding this one.
Maybe the Royals factor will keep the price a little cheaper.
I hope so, but like,
cheap, a little cheaper. Not cheap though. I think he's gonna be expensive. Top 7, 8, 10 round guy.
Yeah, I think so. I think probably higher than that, actually. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be going like 5th, 6th rounds in some drafts.
You're wrong, but you might be right.
Well, at least that's where I would be starting to consider him. So,
sure. I think that's fair.
I mean, everything he has done in the second half and I don't even want to say just the second half. Like, no. This was a guy, like, he didn't make the opening day rotation, and everybody's like, oh, well, that's kind of a bummer. But like in the second half, he's just been unreal. Only 5 home runs given up, only 13 walks given up in 63 innings. He pitches in one of the best parks in baseball to pitch in, in a division that you're not really afraid of a lot of the other offenses.
Nope.
He's a really polished kind of finished product. The question is, like, is there another level coming for him? I don't think so. We're talking about a 10% swing strike rate.
You mean with the skills, right? Because 3.21 ERA, 1.14 whip is totally fine. But
I mean, like a strikeout, like upgrade,
yes,
like
because 24% right now, it's kind of the best that a 9.4% swing strike rate can really generate.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be surprising if that even comes down to like 22%. But I do love his skills. Like, if you can pair him with a high strikeout ace like a Robbie Ray, like that, like, is a really, really good start to a rotation. That hopefully you won't have to pay an astronomical amount for it. So I really like Brady Singer, but I think everybody's going to.
Yeah, he's going to have his fans without a doubt. And they could be plentiful because Brady Singer's having a wonderful year. Former prospect making good. You love to see that. Let's go out to Baltimore. They got a couple pitchers as Jose Barrero strikes out again. I think his strikeout rate, this is interesting. I saw this, I think it was Sarah Langs or Jeremy Frank tweeted out. His strikeout rate is over 100%. He has more strikeouts than he does plate appearances, Justin. Did you know that about Jose Barrero?
Wait. He has more strikeouts than plate appearances.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out how this is possible.
Well, so for the last 2 weeks, he struck out twice in every plate appearance. You've seen Bugs Bunny commercial where he swings like 3 times really quick and then does it again? That's Jose Barrero. Yep.
Yeah.
So you got to get these stats on Twitter, dude. He has 120 strikeouts in his last 60 plate appearances. It's crazy. I can't believe more people aren't talking about it.
I can't believe he was one of your guys coming in.
Dude, so one of my guys. I love Jose Barrero. So I'm shitting all over him because I'm so mad at how much of a terrible player he is, dude. It is so bad. Yes, I love Barrero.
He's one of the guys on your DC teams where you go, no, I'd rather just take the 0.
Exactly. I don't want him in. It's a 45% K rate. Legitimately, he is 0 for 2 with 2 Ks today. It's a 40 or 44% with a 5% walk rate. He is an utter disaster, Jose Barrero. Sorry for the derail there, but I had to roast him and myself. I'm glad you brought up that. Yes, I'm a big time Barrero guy, and honestly, he'll be the last pick of my DCs next year because I don't learn. I'm stupid.
Yeah, well, why not?
Literally the last pick though. Like
he's literally free. He's literally free. Like
we can say free on that one. Jose Barrero will be a 50th pick wherever he goes, if he goes. Back to Baltimore. They got Austin Voth and Dean Kremer here that I want to get into, and a lot of their guys. I think you could really go through the whole rotation except for Jordan Lyles. So Bradish, Kremer, Wells, Voth, and even Watkins. Rates and Barrels was doing a good discussion on Spencer Watkins. They were also doing a bunch of second half stuff. Did not cop the idea from them. I was actually listening to them before we started. I was like, oh, wait a minute. They did the same thing. But they were talking about second half risers after being a first half failure. So a little bit different there. But what do we think about Kremer and Voth, both having wonderful second halves and pretty good seasons overall? Voth, once he got to Baltimore from Washington, really turned his season. Kremer quietly been good the whole season with a 3.23 ERA, 1.23 WHIP for 94 2/3. Voth, like I said, really turned it up once he got to Baltimore, including a nice second half with a 2.49 ERA, 1.20 WHIP. Let's start with Kremer, the prize of the Manny Machado deal. Are you buying this? There's been a little, like there were maybe some flashes in 20 and 21, but nothing that I ever heard anybody saying Dean Kremer this, Dean Kremer that. So he takes a big step forward this year. I know so much of it is that wall. It has to be. Not necessarily with Voth, by the way. He's not that good at home. But Kremer has to be loving that new wall. They're not going to change it next year. So barring that, like, do we use that as a negative because it's new? Or should we just accept that it's fact now and count that as a positive for players the way we do pitchers pitching in Kaufman or Arizona once they got the Humidor or any other good PNC? What do we think, Dean Kremer?
I mean, I think as long as we don't hear any news about them redoing the dimensions.
Yeah. And he was good on the road, by the way, but he really leverages the home part too. So that he's good both spots. Because normally a Baltimore pitcher could be good on the road and then bad at home. But this year they don't get hit at home.
Kremer has not given up a home run in Camden in the second half.
There you go.
You know, like all 3 of the home runs he's given up in the second half have come on the road. One was at Toronto, the other 2 were at Cincinnati. He's also done a really good job of keeping men off the base paths.
Yes. So if you do give up a homer, it's a solo and not a 2 or 3-er.
The strikeouts haven't been very good, and I think that's what kind of keeps the price down. He pitches to a lot of contact. So you do wonder, like he's going to be one of these guys where we're going to take these individual looks at like how much the shift may bother him. In the second half, he's had an 88% zone contact rate, which is about 4% above league average, and a 10% swinging strike rate that is kind of delivered a 18% strikeout rate this year or in the second half. So he's not like super exciting, but he's a guy like for the end of your rotation in a deeper league. Like I don't think he's 10 or 12 team viable really, but in a 15 team league, he becomes a little bit more interesting at the end. I just worry a little bit that maybe he is kind of a Toby. And is that the guy you want on your roster when the Tobys are the things that could probably be the most hurt by the change in these rules? So I don't think he's a bad pick, and I do think that park saves him. Absolutely saves him.
Yes. It creates a floor for these Baltimore pitchers that if you're interested in them, you feel like worst case you're starting them at home only.
Yeah.
Now, the vibe I'm getting here when you're talking about like these potential Tobys maybe being hit. Again, Toby is just a run-of-the-mill pitcher for a 12-teamer. Nick calls him that because of Toby Flenderson from The Office, where he gets a job done, but you don't really like him because on the show, Michael hated Toby. And so that's what Toby's are like meh pitchers that you're kind of streaming or whatever that you don't love. For those that don't know the terminology.
And by the way, his spray chart is exactly what you don't want to see in terms of the shift moving around.
Because he is getting
he's getting a lot of
the shift.
A lot of those ground outs.
This Dean Kremer we're still talking about, by the way, too.
Dean Kremer got, looks like from the shift. So you go overlook his spray chart, and it is a much different picture than the one we were previously talking about with Steele. With Steele, yeah.
Steele. Okay, so Dean Kremer, be careful. And I think this whole Baltimore team could create some pitfalls if people draft them too high. I do think, though, that there's a good chance that people treat them properly in the market and don't overrate them. I wonder if this is one where the whole market's going to kind of get it right, where it's like they get pumped up, obviously, but they don't get pushed through the hilt to where you're like, oh my God, what pick did I just spend on Austin Voth? Voth, especially because he has those Washington numbers really holding him down so that people won't necessarily notice how good he's been. I mean, they'll know he was great in Baltimore, but he put up 19 innings of a 10-13 ERA and a 2.14 whip in Washington to really tamp down the baseline numbers. So what do you think of Voth? Do you like him better, the same, or less than Kremer, and why or why not?
I think I like him a little bit better than Kremer. Me too. I'm surprised that the strikeout numbers
I knew you were going to say that, and I got one for that. I think there's upside. I really do.
Yeah, because I mean, you watch him pitch, and you go, okay, there should be there's stuff there, yeah. And so I'm actually really kind of surprised, looking at the stat line that he was just at a 20% K rate. So I could see that trending up. He gives up more home runs than he actually has given up. Let's see. 4 of his 5 second half home runs have been at home.
Interestingly, Voth has not leveraged his new park yet. If you look at his Baltimore home numbers, they're not. It's actually 2 runs higher, the ERA 382 to 185, than it is on the road, and same innings count, 33 to 34. So interesting stuff there. He's actually gotten hit up at home a little bit. His couple bad outings have both been at home.
And I mean, part of the issue there is the amount of fly balls he gives up. 46.5% fly ball percentage in the second half. So I think there is. Here's the. If it depends on what you want. Like if you want someone with a little bit more upside, I think Voth has the upside over Kremer. If you want safety, though, Kremer's I think just much safer. So it's kind of like, what do you want at the end of that draft? Both these guys, I think, are 15-team players and nothing else.
And then like medium 12s, maybe.
I think both of them are streamers at fast at 12.
That's fair. That's fair, especially in draft season. They might play themselves into being kept as team streamers or consistent starters, but going into the draft season next year, Kremer, Voth, Watkins is the lowest of the bunch for me, but Tyler Wells and Kyle Bradish, I think they're all 15s for sure, with 12 intrigue if it's a deep league or if you're just picking your last flyer that you love.
And I think, I mean, here's the thing. All of these guys are replaceable in the eyes of the Orioles. Like, none of these guys are part of the future. And so, like,
I think Bradish might be, personally. Maybe I just love him. But
I think
your general point is well taken.
I think all of these guys are placeholders for the next crop. So you have to, like, really kind of take a discerning eye.
That won't matter next year.
It could.
You think so? Do you think got 5 new guys ready to go? Like Grayson and DL. Grayson and DL definitely coming up.
Yeah. Not necessarily 5, but they could sign someone. Like, this is a team that, like, they've got a lot of money.
I guess your point makes more sense when you figure they are going to replace some, and we don't know
which ones.
Who.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. Yep.
That's
if they replace 3 starters, that's a 60%
is it going to be your guy?
Chance. Yeah, is it going to be the guy? Like, the fact they sent Watkins down, I think tells us, okay, Watkins is probably one of those guys.
Okay, so here's an interesting one. Sorry. Jordan Lyles has a $7 million option. That's pretty cheap for an innings eater. Do they pick it up?
Absolutely,
they have to, right? Because he can eat $150 out of nowhere for it.
They can trade him at the deadline and get something in return.
Yes,
right? Like,
or trade somebody else and let him keep eating innings if they're bad or something too. Which obviously they expect to be better next year because they're building on this season. So
they're next year's Mariners.
Yes, they're this year's Mariners. They're just following their trajectory 1 year behind. I completely agree. It's the easiest comp. So that's a good point about all the Baltimore guys, that you might have your favorite, but if it doesn't align with Baltimore's favorite, they could be on the outside looking in. And I will say, I'm a Voth guy. He's 30. He's gonna be 31 next year. There's not long-term upside there for him.
None of them have this massive ceiling. None of them have this hey, if everything goes right, he's an SP too. None of them have that. And so are they worth? I think they're all just streamers because you want to be able to just say, I'm cutting bait and moving on as soon as something happens, right?
Yep.
You don't want to be well, no, I got to hold on to him for at least a few weeks to see what happens in case it's a Brady Singer type thing where they'll be back in the rotation and they're gonna lead. No, none of these guys are that good. Honestly, they're all streamers, even in 15s. I think.
I think that's
the way I'm drafting them. Back in your roster.
I think you're right that you don't need to you can love Kremer, you can love Voth, you can love Bradish, Wells, whomever. Plan for them to be a streamer the way you draft them. The price will be streamer-esque, the talent. I agree with that. They can emerge into something more, especially for 15 teamers, but do not go in saying, I've got Voth for 170 innings. You have no idea on that.
And they play in a really tough division to pitch in, right? With really, really good teams. So take a look at the early season schedule. And they may that if the early season schedule has them going up, to Yankee Stadium, to Fenway, home versus Toronto, a bunch and stuff early on, just don't draft them. Yep. Don't draft them and pick them up after.
Wait for them to get cut. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Excellent. So that's where we're at with Baltimore. I totally agree. Lockstep with you there. Let's stay in division, but get a lot older here and talk about a guy I've loved for years, but don't have anywhere this year, even though Michael Wacha is pitching his ass off. So maybe I don't love him because I didn't get him anywhere. And he's having a wonderful season coming off of last year's disaster. And just the volatility of pitchers is perfectly encapsulated here with Wacha. 5.05 ERA, 131 WHIP for 125 innings last year with Tampa Bay. I wouldn't have blamed anybody for saying I'm not drafting him. I mean, the skills were still pretty good in terms of strikeout and walk, but 1.7 homer, 9.5 hits per 9. Those were reasons to stay away from a 30-year-old Wacha who's had injury issues. Well, flip it forward. 107 innings this year of a 2.69 ERA and a 1.03 WHIP. He's been even better he's been pretty much the same in the second half. 2.70 ERA, 0.87 WHIP, 27% K, 3% walk for Wacha in the second half. Is it going to be enough to get you to buy in next year? And I can't tell you where he's going to pitch. He's a free agent again, so it could be his fourth team in 4 years. Or excuse me, his fifth in 5. St. Louis in 19, Mets in 20, which I totally forgot about, by the way. Rays in 21, Red Sox in 22. Who knows where in 23 for Wacha? Will you buy? Will be fully team dependent? Give us your Wacha rundown.
This is one of those guys where you go, hey, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. You've carried my team in Tout Wars this year. You and Martin Perez.
From personal experience, it sounds like.
Yeah, you and Martin Perez have carried my team, my pitching staff in Tout Wars. And I want to thank you for all you've done. There's no way am I going back to the well on this one.
There's a shiny pen for you.
I don't believe any of this. I feel
not at this level, right? There's just no way.
And he gives up so much contact. Looking at his spray chart, he looks like he might be one of those guys really, really aided by the shift. Now, as long as Boston doesn't re-sign him, pretty much anywhere he goes is going to be a better place to pitch, right?
Yeah. If he finally gets out of this division too, or one of the East, because he was in the other, leave the East and go back to St. Louis.
He looked really good in Pittsburgh. I think that'd be a nice little landing spot for him.
Got my Pittsburgh hat on today.
Yeah, exactly. But I know. I mean, but here's the thing. I don't think he's going to be expensive. I think he's going to be cheap as hell. I think nobody's going to buy this.
You're 100% right.
So I think it completely depends on. I want to see him in a better park not necessarily better park, but better division, and I want to see what the defense is behind him.
Okay, I think that's fair with Wacha because only 20% Ks. This is not a K spike. This is command control and an amazing 244 BABIP. The BABIP is driving the overwhelming majority of this for Wacha. He is still a 4 ERA type skill pitcher. In fact, that's what he's been the last 3 years. His Sierra's last 3, 399, 4, 403.
His xERA is 4.17. So
There,
his
like, that's who
preferred
he
ERA,
is. That's his
yeah.
true talent. He's a nice low fours, high threes kind of guy for Wacha. That's the true talent. Pay for that. And if you get lucky again next year, sweet. But don't expect anything near this.
This is like the baseball gods giving him back all that they took from him early in his career.
Correct. You're dead right. When he was just being ravaged by injuries at the peak of his powers, they're giving him a little flavor back because, like I said, he's been a 4 Sierra the last 3 years, but he had a 6.62 ERA in 20, 5.05 last year, 2.69 this year. So this is some make good from the baseball gods. Don't buy it.
I have a question for you. Who do you think? What team do you think is the dumbest team in baseball?
Colorado.
All right, so he's going to sign a 2-year or 3-year deal with Colorado. Whatever team has the worst analytics department is going to sign him to a multi-year deal.
Bro, his ERA is on fire. We got him for 3 years,
literally.
dude. For a 2.5 ERA, bro.
And we didn't even have to pay that much.
Nah, dude.
$30 million for 3 years. Like, this is great.
Yeah, we stole him, dude. Yeah, the Rockies are so dumb. It's unbelievable. They will probably get Michael Wacha on a deal. Let's talk Bailey Falter, young pitcher for Philadelphia, doing some really nice things from the left side. Is this another sneaky lefty late season run against a good schedule? I'm looking at you, Ranger Suarez. Speaking of Nick Pollock earlier, he was keyed in on that. The schedule was the biggest thing for him. Suarez ended up finding a cutter mid-season to kind of salvage things, but Nick was definitely dead on being concerned with Suarez's stuff, especially early on. And you can't predict a Arsenal change there. So he couldn't have known that he was going to find a cutter and be better. Is Falter doing the same, though? Is he teasing us with a sharp second half that is going to mislead? He's at a 3.38 ERA, 0.98 whip for 35 innings with a 23% K rate, 4% walk. 370 on his Sierra, so not that far off of his Sierra. But as I mentioned, the schedule has been pretty nice. If you're looking at it since the break, Chicago, the Cubs rather, Pirates, Mets, Pirates again, Diamondbacks, and they're terrible against lefties, even the new baby Diamondbacks that are good, and then Miami last time out. So what do we think about Bailey Falter? Would it be would you be faltering to take him, or do you think he's worth having?
All right, so he has played all of the really, really bad teams versus left-handed pitching. I'm
telling you.
Chicago is 21st in WOBA versus lefties. Pittsburgh, who he's gotten twice, 27th in the league versus lefties.
I know that Miami's dead last because I've been hammering it all year.
Miami is dead last. Even the Mets, who are the only good team he's really faced in the second half, is 17th. So bottom.
That's
half.
not their strength. Yeah.
Arizona 24th. Like, those are the teams he's faced in the second half. This is all like, again, smoke and mirrors against bad teams. Like,
okay,
no, Bailey Falter is not good. He's just been a really good streaming play in the second half because of the schedule he's faced, and because that park is a really good place to pitch.
Philly is.
Oh wait, no, I don't know why I was thinking Philly. No, Philly's not a good place to pitch.
He's pitched in some good parks, including that.
He's
Pittsburgh
pitched Arizona.
start,
For some reason I was thinking Arizona.
Pittsburgh and Arizona have been good spots, but yeah, he's just taking advantage of a nice schedule here with Bailey Falter. What else?
He's with him? Nothing. Like, there's nothing. Like, he's kind of he has no overpowering pitch. Thank you for your service, Bailey. I hope this secures you. Yeah, exactly. I hope this secures you a rotation spot that you can lose about 2 months into the season next year. But
going in on Falter.
Yeah, thankfully, like, the Marlins continue to be in his division next year.
Yeah, so he'll get another handful of starts against them, and they can't hit. I'm a right-hander, but I should throw opposite hand, and I'm probably getting 3 punches on them. They're so bad against lefties. It's unbelievable.
Well, here's the thing. Like, they've got Washington that's bad against lefties. They've got Miami that's atrocious versus lefties. Like I said, the Mets are
worse against them, at least. Yeah.
And what team am I missing?
Not themselves.
The Braves. Just avoid the Braves.
Just dodge them.
Third best team in baseball against lefties. So as long as you're dodging the Braves with Bailey Falter, like, he'll be a fine streaming pick in division next year.
Well, there you go. So that's Bailey Falter. Justin, not a huge fan. Maybe he's a bigger fan of this young lefty. Nick Lodolo, 24-year-old. He'll be his age 25 season next year. His full season numbers are pretty good. 378, 130 with the whip. Whip runs a little bit high with him, but in the second half, he's really cut it down. 280 ERA, 106 whip for 54 and 2/3 with a 30% K rate, 8% walk rate. That's usually where the whip comes from, is the walks being pushed up. But he has a 290 BABIP, which got back under 300. So he has a 208 average against. Nick Lodolo, you talk about somebody who's not going to be hidden, not going to be cheap, going to be on every quote unquote sleeper list, not a sleeper either. Are you buying Lodolo and are you paying the premium? Because he will be expensive relative to what he's done.
Oh man. Yes. I'm
very excited about him. So I'm gonna have a hard time not paying the premium.
We talked about him last night on the Friends Fans Benefits pod with Nick, and he was just a guy that just came up that we were talking about. I think Nick actually asked, because we were talking about Frankie Montas, and he goes, "Who would you rather have next year, Frankie Montas or Nick Lodolo?" And I said, "Well, I think Lodolo is going to be cheaper." He goes, "Well, but if it was just straight up," and I still think I'd go with Montas. But the more and more I have thought about it, and it was on my mind the rest of the night. Yeah, I think I'm taking Lodolo. I think Lodolo's next year Shane McClanahan.
Ooh.
I think there's.
I completely spaced. Who's the comp against?
The question was Montas versus.
Oh, Montas. Yeah.
And I at first
a huge Montas guy.
But you look how bad Montas has been in New York. Especially specifically pitching in Yankee Stadium in that division, like that was a really, really bad spot for him.
Well, we knew that it was going to be tough too. Like even if you fully believe in Montas, and I'm a big Montas believer, you knew that just the park change had to hurt, no matter what, no matter how good you are. That is a difficult park change to make, and the fact he has not been his best, so he has struggled with New York. I would go Lodolo too, absolutely.
I think Lodolo is potentially Shane McClanahan, just in a worse part. So, but the beauty of it has been like he has, about half his starts in the second half have been at home in Cincinnati, and he's not given up home runs. He has not given up a single home run in Great American Ballpark in the second half. All of his home runs have been on the road. Mm-hmm. That's what can you ask for from a guy who's got a massive strikeout rate, has done a pretty good job of keeping men off the bases via the free pass. Like he had two really bad walk games in the second half, the at Milwaukee and the home versus Chicago, but he survived them. And since then, since August 17th, August 11th. August 17th, his last 5 starts, he has not given up more than 2 walks in any of those starts. In his last 3 starts, he has 2 total walks.
I love that.
I mean, I don't know what else you can ask for from the guy. He's got amazing stuff. He's going deep into games. He's gone 7 innings, 6 innings, 8 innings in his last 3 starts. Yeah. I think the only thing that holds him back is being on the Cincinnati team that we think is going to be a little bit better next year.
Yeah. And that part can be tough, but listen, premium, like we took Luis Castillo those years. We took when they had Castillo, Bauer, Gray, when they were running a hot staff, and it wasn't that long ago, by the way, that they just gave up on the team. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to be taking him. This is what it looks like. And Tyler Mahle, by the way, who did have struggles there, but we still always drafted him. Lodolo is laying the foundation of what it looks like for a premium breakout. You keep invoking the name of Shane McClanahan. I totally get that. Do you think that he goes cheaper than McClanahan did last year, though, at pick 92 for McClanahan? I feel like Lodolo could. So if we believe he could be McClanahan and he goes, say, pick 115, 120, shouldn't we be all over that then?
Absolutely. McClanahan went 109. He was the 29th starting pitcher off the board. So 38th overall pitcher, 29th starting pitcher off the board. Lodolo will be in my top 30.
Same.
And if he is going anywhere after pick 100, I think I'm hammering it.
I think so too.
Oh man, like I said, like this was not what I thought yesterday. Like yesterday during the podcast, I was like, no, this is crazy. And the more and more I thought about it,
Montas.
even though I didn't like write him up or anything last night, like I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. I overslept today because
I've been there plenty, so that's why I gave you zero guff about it.
I was up till 3 a.m. looking at Nick Lodolo. And so I'm glad you put him on the sheet today. This wasn't like planned or anything. But yeah,
I love when little debates like that stick with you, and you're like, I'm gonna keep investigating. I'm gonna keep thinking about this.
Yeah.
And here you are now deep diving, and he's become somebody that you love and think like, hey,
he's gonna be my like SP3 by the time I'm done. Like it's just he won't be, but like yeah. I mean,
by the way, just a quick reference or a quick note with Lodolo, ERA wise, much better at home, 257 versus 563 on the road. I wouldn't say like, oh, he's going to be a sub 3. I'm just pointing it out. I probably shouldn't have because I don't want to infer or imply that is super meaningful. Just pointing out that he hasn't even been beat up by the home park.
Yeah,
he's done really well there. Lodolo was supposed to be an ace, like, you know, or a premium prospect, not necessarily ace. Ace is a very tough tag to give anybody, but he's a top 50 guy for like 3 years running. Yes, this is what it looks like with Lodolo. I can't wait to be interested. But before we hype him up too much more and get him into the number 3 pitcher overall, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here on episode 1098. Someone at the very beginning said 1097. What an idiot that guy must be. But Justin, great talking with you. Glad you were able to get some sleep. I ended up texting Danielle. I was like, just let him sleep now because now I'm going to go run some errands and we'll just catch up during the day. It's no problem. We got each other's back when the other falls asleep a little bit longer. Problem is, we're both night owls, but we have things to do in the morning. You have a family, so there's a much different, you know, you got to get up with kids. But, you know, I don't want to be sleeping all day either. And so we both try to get up early, but we're up till all hours of the night. So it doesn't quite work when you got to get up early sometimes. Sometimes your body says, nope, you're sleeping through the alarm. So it's all good. We'll be back on Friday bright and early at 8 a.m. My time, 6 a.m. your time, talking more. And we'll maybe talk hitters that are similar to this. Guys that have had big second halves that are kind of on those where are we buying them type thing next year. Because I think these discussions are interesting. There's going to be a lot of discussion about several of these guys. What price do we pay? I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just saying as his high end, not as an ADP. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody takes Strider on the turn in the league. Just to kind of put it on the table and takes him 15 and then their hitter 16 type.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if he goes in the first round of Semaines. Like I mean, as long as he's healthy and everything looks good coming in spring training, somebody's going to get that strikeout rate is so gaudy.
Because when you pick 15, 16, you don't have a think chance of getting him back at 3-4. Like, so that is kind of your opportunity to take Strider. So I think we'll see some of that with him. By the way, this didn't need to be a discussion, so I didn't put it on because I think it's guaranteed. But DeGrom's a first rounder next year again, right?
Yes.
Okay, just automatic. I totally agree. All right, well that's going to wrap us up.
As long as he finishes the year healthy.
Yeah. If he got hurt again, it would change it. But if he goes in the playoffs and does well for them, continues to do what he's doing here, easy first rounder again.
He was a first rounder this year, even though we knew that there were knowing that there was an issue. Like,
just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Sometimes you just check.
Well, I think the greater question is, would you take him in the first round?
Yes, I would. I'm certainly open to it. If my hitters didn't get there or something, if I'm picking late, I think he can move down. Like he could be a latter half of the first half to mitigate some of the risk. And I think you could be right on that. He might not even be for DeGrom.
If there are no issues coming the rest of the way and into drafts, I think he is a top 6 pick.
I knew you were going to say 6. I was just about to say the earliest I would take him is 6. So
especially if we're looking at like stolen bases being less valuable because they're going to be more with the bigger bases,
larger base. We're gonna have to talk about that too.
The pitchers not being able to step off.
There's also that. Yep.
As
multiple factors.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could see guys like guys who've been perennial top 3 picks, Jose Ramirez, Trey Turner, drop a little bit because people are going to think. I think it's probably a mistake too, but I think a lot of people are going to say, because a lot of people are going to say I can get those stolen bases later. But when you have more stolen bases, it still means you need to get bigger chunks. And it's not like those guys' stolen bases are like going to stay the same. Like it's not like, oh, Trey Turner's only going to have 25 stolen bases because
he'll jump too.
No, he's going to jump too, and he's going to give you a bigger piece of that pie. Anyways, I do think some of those guys may drop a little bit, and guys who are like DeGrom are going to rise. Also, I think just good hitters in general are going to rise, which they should.
Okay, we'll do this another time because we're wrapping up here.
Yeah,
I was going to do an either. No, I want to dive right back in and do like another 30. But I was going to do an either or. We'll do some either ors on some first rounders where we're slotting DeGrom based on some of those hitters because you bring up some great points. But we will wrap it up here. Talk with you on Friday. Have a good one.
Take it easy.